unbalanced militarism behind Secretary of State and retired General Alexander Haig's infamous "I am in control here" proclamation, not really able to see or articulate the larger system of emergency procedures that seized greater import. 3 decades later, I could adeptly recount both the history and continuity of these preparations for control after catastrophe, priorities and procedures that seemed to persist through Republican and Democratic administrations, conservative and liberal, peacetime and wartime. But there was one huge difference after 9/11. These secret procedures and plans weren't just geared toward the possibility of doomsday for some single and distant final event, because doomsday was now every day. Something new was going on, much of it explained in Top Secret America, the Washington Post newspaper series and book that Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter Dana Priest and I collaborated on for 3 years. The basic premise of that investigation was that the post-9/11 civil defense industry was not only bureaucratically, but geographically transforming the nation. The lights had never gone out in many of the facilities that had been used during the Reagan years and before. Others were reintroduced, the government urging the news media to keep their locations secret from al-Qaeda, even though a good number of them, such as Mount Weather and Raven Rock, the primary civilian and military underground bunkers just outside Washington, had been mentioned in numerous books and articles in years previous. And while the old initials and logos remained, there were some notable new acronyms and euphemisms that hinted of secret activities down vaporous paths. Among the phrases that caught my attention as I dug through documents and spoke with sources after 9/11 was martial law. Mentioning the possibility wasn't new, yet martial law hadn't been declared on the day of the attacks, nor during the darkest days of the Cold War, and it seemed the stuff reserved for other countries or conspiracy nuts. On the other hand, General Tommy Franks, the commander of wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, gave an interview in, of all places, Cigar Aficionado, saying that if terrorists struck the United States with weapons of mass destruction, the country would likely discard the Constitution for some kind of military government. Not exactly the ravings of some 9/11 denier or internet paranoid. Then there was the word extraordinary. In theory, not exactly something to ring alarm bells. The government throws around terms like extraordinary to mean just about everything and anything. But when it came to the classified world, I was increasingly seeing the word attached to something very specific, a term on a very particular continuum, as military briefers like to say, that starts on the left as peacetime, what is sometimes labeled steady state on briefing slides, or temporary circumstances, since technically there is no peacetime anymore, and then moves toward a middle ground of crisis, and then over to emergency conditions 3/4 down the line before becoming extraordinary as it scrapes the right edge. Variations found in new Homeland Security documents and congressional testimony included rare circumstances, extreme circumstances, and gravest possibilities. Curious, I followed up with the multitude of sources, many high-ranking, and some even in positions where they would have to know, but got only a lot of vague dead ends. A few dropped hints. Others communicated with me in the cautionary and disapproving way I had grown used to when reporting on the secret world, or began to speak in tongues in such a way that placed more dark alleyways on the same grid. Several insider friends, some of whom I had been familiar with for over 30 years, said frankly that they didn't know anything. It was a maddeningly thorny cul-de-sac. I might have given up on my quest to understand martial law in the realm of the extraordinary, except for one thing. I was also hearing a biased supposition from so many, including many on the inside, that anything as diabolical as plans for martial law and all that stuff surely was the creation of the Bush administration and its engagement with the dark side. Now that I knew wasn't true. Continuity and preparations for the possibility of martial law weren't new and weren't an invention.